First of all, everybody, welcome to Oz V'Gaon in Gush Etzion, Holy Gush Etzion. So I'm actually standing here shaking with emotion for a number of reasons. Reason number one, we are here in this beautiful place, Oz V'Gaon, that its name was actually named after the three kidnapped boys, who we have a picture of right over here from 2014. Nadia and Yehudit, before they were really moving forward with the Ribonut organization, all about bringing Ribonut to Yudav Shomron, that they've succeeded in bringing to the national level to be on one of the possibilities that even government officials have been talking about for the past few years. But before they did that, they were basically women in green. Anyone who remembers women in green, I'm sure. And they were about fighting over the Jewish rights in Yudan Shomron, Judea and Samaria. And at that time, with the kidnapping of the three boys, they believed that the most important Jewish response, this was immediately, if I'm not mistaken, the night after the kidnapping, they're like, we can't continue normally. So they literally took 3 places in the Gush Etzion area and went up and started setting up shop for Jews to be able to be there. There were 3 areas that were under the control of the Israeli military. It's state land in Judea and Samaria. And obviously the state and the army were not happy about that, but they're like, this is the Jewish Zionist response. They're killing us, they're kidnapping us in order to scare us away and have us run away from our ancestral homeland. We're going to take our land back even without the government behind us and push the envelope. That's the Jewish people. That's what we do. So Oz V'Gaon was one of those 3 points in the Gush Etzion area that the women in green took with putting up people and starting activities. And then in negotiations with the army, it was decided that they would give up the other 2 points, and we would be allowed to stay here in Oz V'Gaon and develop it in order to continue the development of the Jewish presence in Yudan Shomron, strategic area. You see, we're right here above Tzomet Gush Etzion, and look what they've done to it, developing it into a nice, wonderful camping area, play area, and it's really helped develop Gush Etzion, and it's in memory of these 3 boys. Not only in their memory, but my own personal childhood friend and neighbor, Ari Fold, who was just murdered right across the street from Tzomet Gush Etzion, going shopping. So this is an area that touches me personally, as well as personally, nationally, and in terms of my Jewish identity. But the second reason why I'm very emotional right now is because I'm standing in front of a room of heroes, all of you. Like, even though I don't know all of you personally, but living in a day and age where, at least I imagine for all of us or most of us, it is clearer than ever before that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending the signs to the Jewish people that we belong home. And each and every one of you, whether individually or as couples, you came together. I have no clue what your own personal stories are, or how old you were when you came alone, you came with your kids. No clue. But the fact that each and one of you are here, that you picked up your lives and returned home, you are heroes to the Jewish people. Every single Jew today, no matter where they live around the world. And I understand many of you are from Australia originally, many of you are from Britain originally, born there or lived there. So many of our and I'm from America, originally born there. So many of our fellow Jews, not just friends, but family members, neighbors, still have yet to internalize. And I'm going to say it like this. It's not about internalizing that their place is home in their ancestral homeland. Have yet to internalize the true message that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving all of us today with everything going around all over the world. And that's that We're Jews. I'm not American. I'm Jewish. You weren't Australian or British. You were Jewish. You happen to be living in Australia. You happen to be living in Britain. I happen to be living in America. One of the messages I give across when I speak to youth today, and especially I just spoke to a group of British yeshiva students. Right? They're here for the year, about to go back to Britain. They just had a very meaningful year of studying Torah here. And during this war, which makes the year even that more meaningful, and that more they get connected to their Jewish identity and to Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael because of everything going on. And I asked, okay, where are you guys going next year? So this one's going to Birmingham, this one's going to Leeds, this one's going to Cambridge, Oxford. I'm like, guys, why are you leaving? You're home. Forget about the fact that Britain's falling apart and the Muslims are taking over and the British people can't do anything about it. Forget about that. Put that aside. But you're home. Where did your grandparents come from? Where did your great-grandparents come from? They weren't British. They came from Poland, Lithuania. Where did their great-grandparents come from? They weren't Poland, Lithuania. They came from other places. And you're growing up in a day and age where a Jew on his own can pick up and live in our ancestral homeland where the whole country celebrates our holidays all year long because it's our culture and it's our country, and you don't have to feel like a second-class citizen, whether because the country doesn't go by our holidays and our culture, or the growing anti-Semitism reminding us today that they look at us as second-class citizens, reminding us that we're Jews and not really Americans, Australians, British, etc., etc., etc. Why are you leaving? Stay here. I promise you one thing. Anyone who goes back to Britain, your grandkids will not be living in Britain. It's over. Over. Do yourself a favor for your children and your grandchildren. Come home to Israel already. You get a great education. Not that there aren't issues with Israeli high education either, but much better than abroad. Much cheaper. Your parents can fly here for plenty of times for the amount of money they'll be saving. And you won't have to deal with the growing anti-Semitism on campuses. And this was specifically to a group of British students. But this is my message when I'm abroad, and I'm speaking to American students as well.
How did that go down?
Great question. The rabbi, and again, you don't always know like who's going to appreciate or not when you give like the truth, right? And the rabbi was very happy. Like I was able to say what he's not able to say, or how I'm able to say it. He was very happy that I said what I said, and he told me already on Monday. He said a number of guys have already decided to stay in Israel. And to me, the message is clear. What's missing in the Jewish people is not the truth. The truth is out there right in front of our faces. In front of our faces. Unfortunately, we're lacking the leadership with the ability to say the truth. Political correctness has seeped so deep into the psyche of the Jewish people, even into our leaders. Communal leaders, organizational leaders, rabbinic leaders. And again, I have no taina against anyone. Everyone has its own, make his own decisions. And why they're saying what they're saying, why they're not saying what they're not saying. But we can't ignore political correctness has neutered much of the leadership of the Jewish people today. Political leadership for sure. And the people, Am Yisrael, they want to hear the truth, but they're not given. They're not given the truth. So, as you can tell, I try to give the truth. So, anyone who is not familiar with me, my name is Avi Abelo. I run a daily program called The Pulse of Israel, what I call the belief-based, emunit-based, inspiring politically incorrect truth, giving a daily analysis to people all over the world. I have followers all over the world about Israel, the Jewish people, and the freedom-loving world, whether it's analyzing current events, whether it's explaining just what's going on to the Jewish people today, what's going on to Israel today. And as you can hear, I say what I believe needs to be said, that a majority of people are not able to say because they're held back because of how political correctness is just neutered, literally neutered leadership. And especially in the Hasbara war front. I mean, I don't know how many of you saw the latest video of Piers Morgan with Yishai Fleischer. Did anyone see that? No, not British.
Yeah.
All right, good. Better not to watch Piers Morgan. But if anyone who did, everyone here know Yishai, my friend Yishai Fleischer? All right, Yishai, also neighbor of Efrat, spokesperson for the community of Hebron, used to have a program on Israel National News, Arutz Sheva.
Yes.
Yishai was the first Jew, the first Israeli Jewish representative who was saying the truth. Like Piers Morgan on his show, he likes to have like a pro-Israel and an anti-Israel person and then like get in between them and then play it as if he's neutral and then let them fight it out even though he really isn't neutral. And usually we have Jewish Israeli representatives who are there apologize, like they stand up for Israel why we're doing what we're doing, but no, we believe in the two-state solution and yeah, we're trying humanitarian aid and B'kitzur, it's taking the political correct line. Yishai is the first Jew ever on that show, and probably on most primetime shows, who said, "Wait, this is our homeland. We're back in our homeland. We're defending ourselves. They started this war. We're fighting. We're going to fight till we end. It's our ancestral homeland. Don't you dare come at us with claims that we can't defend ourselves. They're the ones from the occupiers. This is our land." And it was the first time that you heard the political incorrect truth on a prime time show that's seen by people all over the world, because a majority of spokespeople or Hasbara people, like whether official positions or unofficial positions, and there are plenty of Hasbara organizations, they all take the political correct line and don't stray from it, which in the end shoots us in the foot. I'll explain to you why it shoots us in the foot. And again, I'm just talking off of my head trying to figure out what direction to go with all of you. I want to open up to questions also. But I'll say it like this. None of Jews know the truth about the Palestinians. Not enough Israelis, not enough Israeli politicians. I don't even know how many people here know the truth about the Palestinians. Maybe you'll know the answer to this question. Before 1948, if anyone here would have opened up, I mean, I don't know what newspapers are in Australia, but I know The Guardian is in Britain, I know New York Times in New York, in America. If you would have opened up a newspaper before 1948, and you would have seen the term Palestinians, who was it referring to?
Jews.
I rest my case. That's all we need to know. Right? But then I give more data. I don't know how many people here ever actually looked or read the United Nations partition plan. Anyone ever do that? I challenge you to do so, because then you'll be more apt at standing up for Israel with the truth. How many times in the United Nations partition plan does it mention the Palestinian people and the words State of Palestine?
Never.
Talks about Arabs.
Arab state for the Arabs. Don't you think, if there had existed a historic people called Palestinians, that the United Nations, right, the organizations responsible for world peace in the world and truth and humanity, would have used the actual terminology of what that people is called and the creation of a state called Palestine? Since, like, if you listen to the news today, that's what it should have read, right? From the river to the sea, Palestine should be free. It existed one point in time that people deserve a state of their own according to everything we hear in the news today. But no, that terminology was not used in the United Nations partition plan. Why? Because there did not exist a people called Palestinians in 1948 with no historic claim to a land called Palestine. It's a fiction. And then the other two data points, which are extremely critical also to know about, and again, I'm on the front line. I talk about this all the day. So I'm like, don't you dare come at me saying Palestinians. There is no such thing. Are there Arab Muslims we have to figure out how to live with? Yes. Yes, we have a problem. But you can't solve the problem if it's based on faulty data. I mean, I don't know how many scientists are in here or how many doctors, but can you solve a problem based on faulty data? Can you diagnose a medical condition if it's based on a faulty diagnosis? Impossible. Same thing here. So long as we, the Jewish people, and we, the official state of Israel, continue to convince ourselves or allow ourselves to be involved in talks that there exists a Palestinian people with a claim to a place called Palestine, there's never going to be peace. Never. Because again, I'm just going to your scientific mind. To that, you can't solve a solution, diagnose a problem based on a faulty analysis. You can't. So everything we read in the news every single day is based on lies, 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 lies. So we're never going to get to a solution. We're not going to get to a solution until we start standing up for the truth. And now we get to the other two data points. Data point number 3. And again, you guys know this better than me. Between 1948 and 1967, who was in charge here in Judea? Jordan was in charge of Judea and Samaria. Who was in charge of Gaza? Egypt. Was there ever a claim to establish a state called Palestine for the poor Palestinians being occupied by their Jordanian brothers and Egyptian brothers for 19 years? Ever once? No. No. That only started, it started after Israel liberated Judea and Samaria and Gaza. Because it's a strategy to destroy Israel, replace Israel, get rid of the Jews. But it officially started in the early 1960s. Why did it start in the early 1960s? How do we know it started in the early 1960s? Because the PLO was established by Yasser Arafat as the head man in 1964. Guess what? Yasser Arafat was born in Egypt. Okay? Not only that, he was trained by the KGB. All right? Now things got interesting. Don't trust me. Go to the history books, and it's Colonel Kemp. Anyone familiar with Colonel Richard Kemp? Yes. Colonel Richard Kemp wrote about this, and he goes through the history. Guess who created the Palestinian identity? Nope. The KGB. Early 1960s. The KGB invented, and created a national identity called Palestinians. They hired and trained Yasser Arafat to be the leader of this terror proxy organization called the Palestinian Liberation Organization in order to destroy Israel and hurt America's growing influence in the Middle East via Israel, because you all remember who really owned, in a geopolitical aspect, the whole Middle East during the 1960s? The Soviet Union. The only country not under the influence of the Soviet Union was Israel. And the Soviet Union wanted to destroy America's... we weren't even an ally in the early 1960s, but we were closer to America than to the Soviet Union. So they created, as a strategy to destroy Israel, a fake identity called Palestinians, set up an organization called the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, trained Arafat, trained Abbas, and that's how we have this identity, this Palestinian national movement based on lies. And even though the Soviet Union no longer exists today, you could say this strategy to destroy Israel has outlived the Soviet Union. And it's stronger today than ever before. So again, anyone who talks to you about the two-state solution, which I call the two-state delusion, it's impossible. Because anyone just has to use their brain. In order to succeed, a solution has to be based on fact. If it's based on lies, it's impossible to succeed. So the longer that the Jewish establishment world, our leaders, our political leaders, our organizational leaders, ignore saying straight out, there is no such thing as a historic Palestinian people. And how many leaders do we have saying that?
All the mayors said that.
Yeah, and how many leaders today? Political leaders, rabbis. How many leaders today rabbis are able to get up in front of a microphone and say, I'm sorry, I want to live in peace with my Arab Muslim neighbors, but folks, understand that there is no such thing as Palestinians, historic people. They have no claim to the Jewish homeland. It's only been the Jewish homeland for thousands of years. And if you go to the British records, the early 20th century, you will see fact by numbers that a majority of all the Arabs came from other countries. They're not even from here. Meaning all the information is right in front of us in order to stand up for ourselves. And yet we I can't blame the Palestinian people who call themselves Palestinian Arabs today. They're only continuing to get away with their lies and continuing to kill us because we've been left leaderless. Therefore, it is up to people like me and you to stand up for the truth. The truth. The Jewish people are the most miraculous people in all of Jewish history. The only indigenous people to have returned to our ancestral homeland after thousands of years of continuous exile and persecution and once again be sovereign in our ancestral homeland? We're the only indigenous people. How many countries that fell under the power of the British Empire decades ago today have sovereign rights in their lands? How many? 0? Those from Australia, indigenous people in Australia. Do they have rights? I'm from America. Canadian Indians, American Indians. None of them. We should be the poster child of humanity today. And yet, I don't know where your grandchildren are, but I'm sure plenty of them are in universities where they're being taught all this progressive sadness and idiocy of oppressed oppressor stuff, and being taught that us Jews, we're the rich white colonialists, where again, any university professor with an ounce of intellectual honesty would say to himself, wait a second, not only are the Jews not white, because we're Jews, we're all colors, not only are we not not colonialists, we're freeing, we're decolonializing our ancestral homeland, but we're like the most oppressed historic people in the world. And we overcame that oppression, not by being crybabies and crying about it, by moving forward and having faith in God and faith in our identity and faith in us as a people and creating the most miraculous country in the whole world today, the Jewish state of Israel. And even though we're one of the smallest nations in the world, we're punching way above our weight. I think officially we're like the 14th largest economy of the world. We're tiny Israel, one of the most powerful armies in the world. And let's put October 7th aside for a second. That's a different lecture series. We're punching way above our weight. And even helping countries around the world whenever they have tragedies, and even helping enemy countries when they have tragedies. Like, we have so much to be proud about. Like, my main message to fellow Jews is, be proud Jews. Like, you know about the truth, you don't know about the truth, but at least know enough of the facts to be proud Jews. For our kids to be proud Jews, for our children, our grandchildren. And then, ultimately, my ultimate message that I try to give over to people in my messaging, in my daily Pulse of Israel program, is if you're not making your Aliyah plans yet, start making them. Start making them. And not to run away from the growing anti-Semitism, which is going to get worse. Much worse. This is just the beginning. But I don't tell people to make Aliyah because they have to, in order to be afraid of what's going to happen where they're living. I tell them to make Aliyah because if you really internalize that you're a Jew first, and a British, Australian, American, whatever, that's your second identity because you just happen to be living there at this moment, but your eternal identity is your Jewish identity, then how can you not want to come home? So I know there are only 2 minutes left. I'm sorry there's no time for questions, but I will say this. We are holding our second annual conference in Jerusalem, the Begin Center, on June 30th. You are all invited. I could send Yishai the information. There's going to be registration. And our conference last year, our conference was about unmasking the anti-Semitism behind the Palestinian national movement, which I've been talking about for years, yet was being ignored by everyone. And as the assistant to the anti-Semitism envoy of the Trump administration told me, wow, you were really timely to be bringing that up then, because now everyone sees that, whether they acknowledge it or not is something else. That was our conference last year. This year's conference is going to be Next Steps, a roadmap for true Israeli independence. How we move on from October 7th as the people. And my bottom line is this. I don't want anyone to be depressed about our situation today. I don't want anyone to be depressed about being leaderless. Because the power, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't choose Am Yisrael to just follow leaders. He chose Am Yisrael. We are the power. We make a difference. Leaders are not really leaders. Leaders today are not really leaders. They're elected officials. We are supposed to lead them. They are supposed to follow our lead. So if we want change, we have to stand up for the change we want. And then the leaders, whether political, whether communal, organizational, or rabbinic, they're going to follow us. So it's up to us to put forward the roadmap that we believe is necessary for the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel to go by. And then we daven, and we use whatever way we have to make an influence, and we'll be zocha one day, we'll merit one day to see that true roadmap to a true, strong Jewish people and our Jewish ancestral homeland, the Jewish state of Israel, come to fruition. But if all we do is sit back and read the news and complain about the news and complain about this politician or that politician, nothing's going to change. We can make the difference. And with that, Am Yisrael Chai. Thanks for coming, everybody. And if anyone is interested in hearing this daily dose of inspiring politically incorrect truth, all they have to go is go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And it'll be a pleasure to have you as a subscriber and email every once in a while. Heard you at Ozvi Gahon. It'll be a pleasure to be in touch with you. Go look about enjoy the rest of your day.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.